Today I'm going to do a fairly unconventional video. I am literally floating in the middle of a lake on a kayak, doing some wonderful kayaking here while I'm on vacation. Something that came up for me recently is this idea that nothing is what it seems. Okay, I am vacationing with family and I have a lot of old wounds that are showing up. I think that can happen when many of us visit family. But here's the thing, the magic and the healing of it, and I've said this in other videos, we really can reparent ourselves, right? We can completely change the story, change the narrative. And so much of the pain that we experience has to do with the stories that we tell ourselves, okay? And I'm going to get a little vulnerable here and share that when I was growing up, I grew up thinking that I was a mistake, that I didn't belong here, that I wasn't supposed to be here. And the reason for that is I am the oldest of 5 children, and my parents got married because they were pregnant with me. And over the years, I found that, my mom would have preferred to do something else. My dad would have preferred to be with someone else, do something else. Yet, that's not to say they didn't have love for each other. They didn't want to move on, and they had 4 more children after me. But the thing is, I felt that energy, I felt that wound, that pain. And my mother now has dementia, and I came on this trip in part to visit her. And it was interesting because one of my sisters gave me my mom's wedding ring. And I said, "Why are you giving me the wedding ring?" And she said, "Well, after all, if it weren't for you, none of the rest of us would be here." And it didn't hit me at first, but I had to think about that a little bit and consider what that really meant. And this idea that all these years that I spent believing on some level I was a mistake, maybe I messed up my parents' life, or didn't allow them to have the kind of lives that they really wanted, etc. I never ever thought that maybe because of me, 4 other people are here. Now, it's never that simple. Of course, I think we all choose to be here. We all choose to come and incarnate on this planet. But my point in sharing this is that nothing is at it as it seems. I experienced this also in a meeting that I had while I was here, and just listening to people saying, "Oh wow, I never knew that about you," or "I never thought that about this situation," or "never saw things that way." In my coaching work, one of the most amazing things that we do is create breakthroughs. Sometimes it means creating a breakdown to have a breakthrough, right? We can end up breaking down and feeling like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know how I'm going to handle this." But the breakdown often leads to the breakthrough. And the breakthrough might be that different story, that different perspective, that different thought than what you have carried or had maybe for years, maybe your whole life, okay? When we can start to think from a different perspective, everything can change. Now, another piece that I want to share about this is that it's not just when we have these aha moments, but sometimes these things come from asking questions, right? We have no idea how much we assume about people. We make an assumption that people think and feel a certain way. There are different personalities, different ways of being, different ways of showing up, and we make assumptions that because they show up that way, they are this way or that way, right? And they are not necessarily thinking in ways maybe we would like them to or wish they would, or maybe we think they don't understand something. But here's the thing, if we're willing to ask questions, then you might be really, really surprised at what you find out. You might be surprised at what other people like, what they think, what they believe. Don't make assumptions. I remember my 10th grade geometry teacher. I'm sure many of you have heard this concept, but the word assume can be divided into the first 3 letters, ASS, and then the 4th letter, U, and then the last 2 letters, ME. So to assume is to make an ass out of you and me, right? And that stuck with me. My geometry teacher in 10th grade put that up on the blackboard, and it really made me pause that it's so important that we don't make assumptions, that we ask for what we need, that we share what we want, that we ask questions. Now, the final point that I want to make in this sharing is that when we assume, we also don't have the boldness or the courage to ask even bigger questions, the kinds of questions that maybe upset the apple cart, that maybe go in opposition or in countercurrent to the status quo. And this is one of the beautiful aspects of the sacred feminine. The sacred feminine is always questioning, always digging deeper, looking for what's beneath the surface, not necessarily trusting what's on the surface, not necessarily only looking at what is evident, right? It's this concept of being willing to dig deeper, go further, ask more questions, not necessarily trust everything that's put in front of you. We are bombarded in today's world with mainstream media, tons of noise, tons of flashing billboards and lights and commercials and messages everywhere we turn. It's almost impossible to find silence. And in the silence, we can find our inner wisdom. And in our inner wisdom, there are questions more than there are answers. Sometimes our inner wisdom is there to invite us to ask questions that we otherwise would not ask. So I hope you'll ask the questions. I hope that you will wonder what it might look like from another perspective. I've done other videos where I've mentioned perspective. I'll continue to do so because I think one of the most important things we can do as human beings on our journey to evolve and grow and shift and change is to continue to look at life from multiple perspectives, right? To see things from various perspectives, to ask questions, to dig deeper, to look at what we might be missing, to not assume. So I invite you to ask the deeper questions, ask the big questions, question yourself, question your stories, question others, question their stories. Really make that effort, that bold effort to understand, because you might be surprised how much healing is in it when you realize there's so much more to the story than you've been told, or you've been seeing, or that you've noticed on the surface. So here's to digging deeper, and I look forward to talking to you next time.